Hi, I'm Colin Livingston from the CanTorque Race Report, airing on the Jason Gregor Show every Thursday afternoon on TSN 1260. Today is a really fun episode of Racing 101, one I've been looking forward to since we came up with this idea, which is what you need to know in an introduction to getting into karting. Maybe you've been a fan of watching racing on TV. Maybe you go to one of the local indoor go-kart tracks and you always beat your buddies, or you set a personal best time. Maybe you're just deciding that it's time to get into racing. Here's where we're going to get started. And we've got a little bit of an outline of what you're going to need because you're going to have to buy your own equipment. You can't just borrow other people's stuff. But we're going to give you a real broad overview, some of the mechanics, some of the spare parts you're going to need, go through a little bit of the racing gear and what you can expect at the track. Getting into racing can be a little bit intimidating, especially your first couple of times out. You maybe don't know what you need. How the kart works is a little bit of a mystery. You don't know how to set it up. Relax. Most people in karting are going to be able to help you with your setup. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview. In our first episode, we talked about the equipment the drivers will use for oval racing and road racing, where the focus is really on preventing burns. In karting, we're not worried about getting burned so much as we are from abrasion, because in the go-kart, we're not strapped in. So you sit loose, there's no seat belts, there's no restraints. And the idea is when karts make contact, especially wheel to wheel, they can go upside down, they can get in the air. What you want to be able to do is push yourself out of the kart, which unfortunately means you might be sliding on the pavement. So abrasion is the number one thing with most of our equipment. But then we've got a couple other pieces here that do a number of different things. So we've got our race boots. So race boots, typically made out of leather, high-grade leather with a hard sole. You can see that I've put a little bit of use on this thing. They'll help you with accelerating and with braking, that they spread the load out over the hardness of the sole. Where trying to push on a pedal can actually be a little bit tender. This is one of the biggest things that separates kart racing from other forms of racing. This is a rib vest. So when we sit, if you can see, this is a fairly new rib vest, but right on that spot is where my ribs would contact the seat. So what this does, this is super hard plastic, takes the point load and spreads it out over a nice wide surface. If you were putting that load on your body, when you get into the higher end karts, you can actually generate 2 to 3 times your body weight. So by putting that amount of load on a really tight spot, you can do a lot of damage, and I've seen a number of people who have actually cracked or broken ribs. Rib vest is absolutely essential. An undershirt, it almost seems counterproductive to put on more clothing because karting is super physical, and with that, you're going to generate a lot of heat. You're going to sweat more than you can imagine, especially when the temperature starts getting over 30 degrees here in the summer. But having that undershirt absorbs a little bit of your sweat, but it also keeps from rubbing. If you were wearing your kart suit just without anything on underneath, you get all these supplier or these sponsor logos. You get a little bit of embroidery, and rubbing on bare skin is not a real comfortable feeling. Racing helmet, again, helmet is for impact and for abrasion. It's not any consideration for fire. Balaclava does a couple of things for guys like me or girls. Keeps hair out of your eyes, but it'll also keep the sweat closer to your head, which is really important because you can't really wash a helmet. You can't throw this in a washing machine. Some have removable pads, but balaclava is going to help keep your helmet a lot fresher throughout the season on those super sweaty days. And then racing gloves. So racing gloves, again, ours don't have any rating for fire, but they have great pads on the inside, these great grips. Because it takes a lot of strength to turn the kart, you don't want to have to over squeeze. So having really good gloves with strong grips are going to help you drive a whole lot easier than anything else. This is what we call a donut, a neck brace. Donut will go between your helmet and your shoulders, and especially in the beginning, when your neck isn't really developed, it's going to help support you, especially as you're going through the corners. Again, if you figure that your head weighs about 20 pounds, and let's just say a helmet weighs 5 pounds, you multiply that by 3, you're carrying upwards of 30 or 75 pounds as you're going through a corner. And until you train your neck, and really the best way to train is to get on track. Donut's going to be your friend in the very beginning. And then the last thing that I have here is, it looks like a real ugly plastic bag, but this is a rain suit. So what the rain suit's going to do, you'll put this on over top of your karting suit so that in the rain, obviously this is material, it will hold and absorb water, which is really uncomfortable, can be really cold. This just helps keep the water on the outside and still allows you to race. And I'm here to tell you, once you get the handle of racing, there's almost no more fun than racing in the rain. It's something that a lot of people are anxious about, but most really accomplished racers just love it. Okay, so what we have here, this is a 4-stroke Briggs & Stratton kart with what's called an L206 engine. The Briggs & Stratton L206 produces between 8 and 9 horsepower. It's very affordable to purchase and very easy to run. You don't need to do any engine tuning. You know, the really competitive guys will get a small carb adjustment that usually only happens once a year. You essentially put fuel in it and run it. Not necessarily the most powerful engine on the planet, and definitely not the most throttle response that you can have. But compared to what you would experience in an indoor go-kart track, these are really fun karts to drive. At our home track, Rotax Mojo Raceway in Warburg, these will hit between 70 and 80 kilometers an hour on our straightaway. So you're not exactly standing still, but they run the same tires that we run in other categories, like the 2-stroke karts and shifter karts. So they'll go through the corners extremely well. As we move up and go over the front end, there's a couple of things to look at, and especially when it comes to spare parts. So these are called your tie rods. And then the component here is called your tie rod end. It's obviously what connects the steering column to the steering mechanism. What can happen if you get into an accident, you know, tire on tire, hit a wall or something like that, tie rods can bend, tie rod ends can break, and you can maybe have some issues with spindles. These are good things to keep as items for repair. The only thing you're really going to end up doing is what we call track adjustments. So track is the amount of width in the front end. You know, widening will change the amount of grip, narrowing will change the amount of grip, and it will make your front end either more responsive or less responsive. Track conditions will largely dictate that. But in the front here, if you take a look, it's just the steering mechanism. There's no brakes. There's no extra componentry up here. We'll move around towards the back of the kart. There's only one brake. So we've got a rear brake. That's the only thing that's used to slow the kart down. Little bit different once you get into different categories. Then we start incorporating front brakes, which really helps the kart slow down a lot quicker than just one brake. Couple of the other things, rear gear and drive gear, maybe need to get a couple of those in the beginning. These are going to control your top speed to make sure that when you get to the end of the straightaway, you're at your maximum RPM. But other than that, these karts, you pretty much put fuel in, start them up, go run your race, and bring them back. Very affordable. So these karts, used kart will start at about $2,000. Brand new chassis will start at about $4,000, $4,500. An engine sells for about $800. Then the only other thing that I can recommend is this data acquisition system, the little computer that you see here on the steering wheel. In the beginning, the only important thing you want to be tracking is lap times. You want to know that as you're trying things on the track, as you're changing lines, trying to drive deeper or back out of a corner earlier, you want to be able to compare your previous lap time to your current lap time so that you know, hey, I tried a thing, it didn't work. I tried something else and that went quick, so that you can start understanding that. Once you get a little bit deeper into racing, your display will also record water temperature, which is really important because engines really produce power at certain temperatures. You'll start measuring your exhaust gas temperature. That'll tell you how rich or how lean your engine is. But to get going, again, you know, for $2,000–2,500, used kart like this is a good starting place. A lot of fun, and really starts developing the skills that you're going to need, especially when it comes to rolling speed through corners. The other thing you're really going to need, these are kart trolleys. Multiple manufacturers, all kinds of different features. There are even motorized versions that will automatically pick a kart up and load it by itself. What the trolley's going to do, when you're back in your paddock area, be working on your tires, doing something on your engine, you know, having to replace a spare part, trolley's going to get you at a real comfortable level. But from there, it's going to help transport your kart onto the grid before the race. There's always going to be another set of hands to help you put things up and take things down, but a trolley stand is going to be really important. If Tyler can give me a hand here. Karts aren't too heavy. They're easy enough to throw up, place on. Once you've got the kart on the trolley, you're self-sufficient. You can move it anywhere. It's at a great height to be able to work on anything. Last thing is maintenance. We talked about some of the common parts you're going to need. Really maintaining a go-kart is pretty simple. 2 10mm wrenches, 2 13mm wrenches. Also a good idea to have the same 10mm, 13mm sockets in either 1/4 or 3/8 drive. Pair of slip joint pliers, side cutters, Allen wrenches, and then a hammer. I like a dead blow hammer because it's a little less invasive as you're trying to knock axles out and things like that. There's always going to be a few other things. You're going to go through more cable ties than you can imagine, holding wires together and bundling things. But other than that, it's a great sport. It's a lot of fun. And again, most of your racing competitors are going to be your biggest allies. Don't be shy. Ask a lot of questions. Ask how guys got started, gals got started. Get to know these people. You'll end up spending more time at the go-kart track than you can probably imagine. And you're going to have a lot more fun than you can imagine as you build friendships and camaraderie. And then once you start finding a little bit of success, great exercise, a lot of fun. Can't recommend it enough. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in a future episode.